Here, in the halls of High Chieftain Theraban, I, your Huldra, call you to war. The aggression of the Ambrians will not cease unless we halt their advance. I will not stand to see another clan burn in the fires of Prios. You are chieftains, keepers, honorable thanes, skalds, and witches. Each of you bring forth your wisdom under the moon of the winter solstice, so that tomorrow we call forth a new era for all clansfolk of Symbaroum. This is a campaign pitch. It exists for you, the game master or player, to immerse yourself into the world of Symbaroum from the perspective of the Barbarians, or as they refer to themselves, the clansfolk. While the Huldra, the High Witch leader of the clansfolk, guides the in-game discussion, which you can adapt for your own Session 0, I will be your out-of-game guide for how to launch a grand epic of a campaign. Why do we need an epic war? What forces drive the world of Symbaroum to this extreme? How futile is this war between humanity when the true enemy is corruption? I hope you'll listen to my perspective, but more importantly, I hope you think critically and come up with your own answers for your own game by using your gift of Truesight. 20 years ago, we were 13 clans. Now, only 10 gather in Karvosti. We resisted when the Ambrians invaded the plains, but we were not united. Clan Jezora, our strongest and most defiant people, were annihilated by Ambrian steel. Seeing this, Clan Cadiz submitted, and they integrated into Ambrian society. This meek display for the sake of survival has condemned them to a fate equal to Jezora. Their children do not know our ways, but the Ambrians. Their culture is lost, their clan a forgotten memory. The rest of us persist. We live on even as the Ambrians build colonies on the ashes of our mother's home and drive us deeper into the darkness of Davokar. Another clan dared to defy. Karahar did not give up their raids. Their chief and their keeper found allies in the elder folk and sought to strike back at Kastor. And when the chief and the keeper fell to chaos, the Duke of Kastor saw opportunity. The tree of Malima has been cut down. Its bark used to build a road to the heart of Symbar. Its clanfolk scattered to the wind. This affront to all our people cannot go unanswered. If we do not strike back, who among you will volunteer to be the next sacrifice to Ambrian greed? 13 clans, now 10. We will lose no more. This video is for both Symbaroum newcomers and veteran players, but the lore masters among you may already notice some discrepancies between the canon history of Symbaroum and what I'm presenting to you right now. That is true, and it is intentional. Your RPG books are not images made for you to color between the lines on. They are a canvas and brushes, and you are free to use those tools from your own vision that works for your players. I am still using the fantastic setting of Symbaroum laid out by the work of the developers, but I'm adding my own twists. Karahar is presented in the core books as a clan that is still hostile towards the Ambrians on its border. I have used that tension in 2 campaigns, and in the aftermath of one of those campaigns, it was the players who decided the Ambrians would take advantage of the chaos caused by their characters and swoop in to destroy the clan. This was a surprising development, but one that I accepted and moved forward with. If you want to run a campaign like this, I have a full series of recaps on my channel for the Ghost of Karahar campaign.
But you're welcome to start with the Clansmoot, or create your own different scenario leading to a slightly different Clansmoot. Now, back to the war meeting.
Winter is upon us. We know it well. It is in our bones. The Ambrians do not carry winter in their blood, and we can use that against them. They also do not expect an attack, especially not from all the clans united. And our witches are far more talented and deadly than their Theurge priests. These are advantages we must use ruthlessly against our enemy. They number beyond 2 million, with an army of 50,000. But they have been defeated before, and they can be defeated again.
The Barbarians may appear to be the inferior force, but the Huldra has a point here. Real-world history, as well as books and movies, are full of tales of scrappy primitives overcoming the technologically advanced oppressor. But the clansfolk might not be aware of some of their own disadvantages, which you and your players may point out in the session. Ambria is a war machine. They will have an effective supply chain, while the clansfolk will have to forage and pillage during their invasion. Ambria also has a unified command structure, while the clansfolk will have to establish effective leadership and communication between the squabbling clans. The mystics of the Church of Prios, as well as the Ordo Magica, have established roles on the battlefield, while the witches of the clans will have to distinguish their role among the martial combatants. Finally, Ambria has alchemists and siege masters manning their stone walls, while the barbarians have untested pioneers manufacturing siege engines from the land. War may be necessary for barbarian survival, but it is going to be far from easy.
The High Chief and I have summoned you here, but we will not be like the Ambrian Queen, enslaving you all to our will. Let us hear proposals from each clan on what path we shall follow. None shall leave this hall until we agree on the path. Let each of you remind us your customs and your ways as you announce the combatants you send to the battle.
This is the crux of this Session 0, which also doubles as the first session for your players to start getting into character. This is a difficult approach, but a necessary one. I first considered asking my players to make their characters and send them as representatives to the Clansmoot, but I quickly realized that the world building done at the Clansmoot would change their mind on what sort of character they wanted to play, as would the war plan they ultimately agree on. So, as I presented this scenario to my players, I asked them to view it from a few layers. They would need to consider the world first as players, thinking about what clans and proposals they are drawn to in terms of what kind of game they would want to play. As they start debating and backing certain clans, they begin to build empathy with broad groups of people within the setting. And as they find themselves truly fighting for the proposal they think is best, character ideas may emerge. You could gamify this, but honestly, my group wound up improvising things while sitting in comfy chairs in the backyard, an immediate difference from our gaming table, which someone compared to the Council of Elrond. And yeah, that's apt. This is your opportunity to decide what happens to the ring. So let's hear from our 10 clans. Remember to listen as a player, considering the game experience you want, as an observer within the world, considering the history and ramifications for Davokar, and as a specific character emerging from the discussion to find your voice and your stakes in this war.
The tree folk of Enoai represent 40,000. We are prepared to muster 6,000 warriors and witches for your war. We follow the spider god Oroke. Our warriors wear heavy armor and fight in the shield wall. Our green witches bear thorn armor and live in fortresses. Queen Corinthia was not the aggressor here. That was the young fool, Duke Gadramai of Kastor. The clansfolk should unite to target the lands formerly called Karahal, drive out the Ambrians there, take Kastor, and stake our claim as an ally to Corinthia.
Our first proposal actually has several elements to it, starting with Kastor. I've used Kastor as a starting location because its light description in the core rulebook leaves it open to creative license. But the initial pitch of a fairly lawless town ruled by a young lecher and close to the border of Davokar with the most hostile clan has plenty of narrative hook potential. Kastor also makes for a worthwhile target, and Enoai's angle tries to strike a balance between violence and diplomacy by declaring Duke Gadramai the enemy and Queen Corinthia the ally. It is completely plausible, given the infighting of the Ambrian nobles, to have this gambit pay off, but it is just as likely that the move will be seen as weakness and invite a strong counteroffensive by the Queen herself. By the way, these are my little sketches of the different clansfolk. The art of Symbaroum is fantastic, but does draw on a lot of typical Viking aesthetics, which makes sense given the game's Swedish design team. You're going to see a lot of very different clans, possibly too different to plausibly be from the same people, but that's kind of the point. Feel free to critique these designs in the comments and don't take them as anything concrete. Pick your faves and scrap the rest. Adapt and customize your game world just like I did.
The Foxes of Odaiova represent 50,000. I'll remind you, we are the largest clan. We are willing to send 5,000 to battle. Our dominating duelists and our witches wielding the fire of our enemies. We have accepted Ambrian presence and learned to capitalize on it. Yet now, we can see that long term, this is the path to ruin. We are ready for war. Let us strike Thistlehold, the heart and soul of Ambrian exploration and a visible threat to Indaros once we capture it.
Thistlehold might just be the most important city in the game, because it is the most sensible starting location for most parties. From the Barbarian perspective, it is the looming tower that watches over their land, seeking to claim all the light touches. We need to touch on the real-world historical context of what's going on in Symbaroum, not because it's a direct allegory, but because it will inevitably evoke different imagery at different tables. When I first read Symbaroum and was trying to wrap my head around the cultures of the two very different human forces, I pictured the barbarians as the various tribes faced by the Roman Empire, the Gauls, Greeks, Goths, Numidians, and more, who had distinct identities, but were all the same under the Romans. People to conquer. But when I brought this up more recently to a player of mine who happens to be a history teacher, he took a very different interpretation, seeing the Ambrian colonizers as American settlers using violence and later false alliances against the natives. The clansfolk then are similar to the Iroquois, the Sioux, the Cherokee, the countless other tribes who were all painted with the same brush as opposition to the American expansion. You could make plenty more historical comparisons, but there are so many possible comparisons, and the world building of Symbaroum is so well defined next to its unique magic system that drawing one specific allegory is far too vague and unfitting, and I'm guessing that's intentional by the designers. I would urge you to play around with the themes and allusions to clansfolk being anti-colonial, anti-industrial, or even anti-fascist, but at the same time, I'll caution you to draw the line at bringing explicit present-day political allegory to your fantasy game. Or don't listen to me, it's your game and you can throw subtlety out the window if you want.
The Wolverines of Saar-Kahn represent 30,000 and commit 10,000. Among your fiercest fighters. We, the followers of the Blood Daughter, have ended our self-imposed isolation to join you today, and we thank you for electing to ignore our previous raids against some of your clans. which our keeper has informed you is surely from loner separatists who have been summarily punished by our chief. Our warriors are axe artists, and our red witches lead our warriors with their shape-shifting. We are ready for war. Let us strike Temple Wall, just a short march across the plains to hold the Ambrian holy place hostage. There will be elite Templars in black cloaks to fight, but they are in small numbers. Let us humiliate the Ambrians with an affront to their weak god.
So, like my players, you may be thinking that this faction kinda rocks. For their design, I drew upon goth aesthetics as well as, well, goth aesthetics, but like Visigoths. The Sars are set up by the book to be a tough guy biker gang of the Barbarians, and you want them on your side when a bar fight breaks out. The clansfolk are facing one hell of a bar fight, and they need the numbers and the savagery of Clan Saar-Kahn on their side. The most evocative aspect of the Saar-Kahn in the book is their devotion to the Blood Daughter. She just sounds cool, so I'm choosing to pit her up against Big Dog Prios. The Saar-Kahn strategy is a total blitzkrieg across the plains to win not only a military upset over the powerful Templars, but to strike a massive blow to Ambrian morale by burning down the Vatican with the Pope inside.
The Eagles of Yedesa, I'll remind you, the clan of the High Chieftain and many High Chieftains before him, represent 40,000 and send 8,000 fighters. We are fortress builders, but we are ready to leave our nest and lead the charge with our polearm masters and our alchemist witches. We are ready for war. Let us strike Savona on the Ambrian flank, and poorly protected. This will be the easiest target to take, but one that will show we mean business.
As a colonial power, the Ambrians are exploring further into Davokar for trade and resources. The Yedesa identify this and seek to hold the key Ambrian trade hub of Savona, which should be less heavily defended compared to other targets. If your table cares about resource management and economics, this could be a potent power play that prevents further bloodshed and demonstrates that the Barbarians are more than just brutes. But it also has drawbacks for the Barbarians. The clansfolk have undoubtedly benefited from a relationship with the more technologically advanced Ambrians, and one clan in particular might not want to let go of their edge.
The fishfolk of Zarek represent 20,000 with 2,000 warriors. We're traders upon the shores of Lake Volgoma, and we have accepted Prios as our god, with our witches blending theurgy into our mystical powers and rituals. Our warriors wear scale mail and fight with 2 weapons. And I'm sorry to tell you, but war is folly. Resistance is futile. The time has come to dissolve the clans for our own survival. Let's appeal to Queen Corinthia to become duchies with our own dukes and duchesses, so that our culture may survive rather than be subsumed like Cadiz or eradicated like Jazora. Nobody wants this, but this is the clear solution.
So, Clan Zarek should be setting off a lot of red flags. They are the most willing to accept Ambrian rule and the most likely to betray a barbarian alliance in return for keeping their elevated position under their oppressors. Compound this with the history that Zarek was the known enemy of the now destroyed Jazora clan, and you have an enemy within the Clansmoot who your players may likely decide to oust or even kill before the war gets started. Their proposal also represents a non-starter for the campaign, the complete abandonment of the war. But I'm including it so that someone might take up the role of the devil's advocate, so that others might argue against it and find their reasons to fight and die rather than submit to Ambrian rule. Who knows, you might have a player make a scheming Zarek priest who will either doom the party from the inside or find his true barbarian roots and become a hero.
The masked dogs of Godinja represent 20,000 with 2,500 soldiers. We're a proud people.
the descendants of Symbaroum's elite, and we're friends to the elves. The masks worn by all of our people are made by Godinja crafters. We are masters of archery and illusions. Even united with surprise and winter on our side, the clansfolk are not strong enough to truly combat the might of Ambria. We should send a small but powerful contingent to the capital of Indaros as a show of force, sternly demanding the return of Karahar land and halting the Great Templar Road.
Here we have another proposal that is going against the grain of total war, but unlike the Zarek proposal, this one doesn't totally capitulate to Ambrian rule. This is setting up a diplomatic campaign where the party will travel to Indaros and speak softly but carry a big stick. This actually plays into the adventurer archetypes pretty well. By having champion duels and arena combat against Ambria's best and brightest while appeasing the court and sharing clansfolk culture, the barbarians could prove themselves worthy adversaries and stop a war with thousands of casualties from ever occurring.
The rune wielders of the Vajvod represent 40,000 and send 8,000 to battle. We use the old magic of tattooed warriors and symbolism. Because of Karahar's fall, we are now cut off from the other clans. We know we are the most likely to be attacked next. The clansfolk and the elder folk cannot currently combat Ambria, but we are close. Let us send diplomats to bring bestials, centaurs, and trolls into the fold. With this united front, Ambria will submit to our demands or truly fall in war.
This alliance option brings up a whole different kind of campaign for your players to choose. Rather than fighting a frontline war, they will send out diplomats and lore masters to convince the wilder cultural beings of Davokar to side with them against the Ambrians, potentially setting up an even cooler battlefield later or preventing a war with an enormous show of force. The various cultural beings, as well as your own ideas, lends itself to tons of possibilities should you and your players prefer this route. Also, I really like Vajvod. They're probably my favorites. And yeah, the tattooed Pictish warrior women are a big bonus, but I also like the strange magic of symbolism and the plight of being cut off from the other clans. The Vajvods truly seem to be the most unique outsiders among all the clans, so if they are willing to set aside their differences for the common cause, everyone should be able to join in.
The bears of Baiaga represent 15,000, and we're ready to send 3,000 to war. We follow the blood wolf, Eric's. Our red witches are beast callers, summoning Biagorn to fight alongside our axe and shield warriors. In the past, y'all have called us ruthless and disloyal, and yet, here we stand. The clansfolk and the elder folk cannot currently combat Ambria, but we need not. Let us use the forest of Davokar to our advantage. Send elite explorers to find and make pacts with forces more powerful than ourselves. I'm talking lindworms, dragons, world serpents, Neferani, giants, maybe even the old gods themselves.
On the surface, the Baiaga plan seems very similar to the Vajvod plan, but the Baiagas are actually proposing the Barbarian Manhattan Project. They don't want an alliance, they want a world serpent to swallow Indaros. This idea is inspired by alternate rules for monster parlay and art from the book like this image. Now, imagine what is actually going on here, what this being is and how the barbarians can convince it to strike their enemies, and what price that might entail. This approach isn't for everyone, but I imagine there's a lot of folks who would be eager to explore this fascinating alternative.
The Horse Lords of Varakko are a mere 2,000. We can only send 500 warriors, but these Swift Lancers and Horse Archers are your finest warriors. Our Wise Witches are healers and growers who will
not be walking into the front lines. War is folly. Let us ratify a statement to Queen Corinthia that we are united clans who will protect each other against future Ambrian expansion. Also, we should build a wall. The Varakko plan is informed by their nomadic lifestyle and having to put up with their Saar-Kahn rivals. Attacking Ambria in a prolonged offensive to take back the plains is a huge commitment, but holding back the Ambrians from advancing further and killing any that dare to cross a united Ambrian border is far more feasible, even if it doesn't pay off as much. And if this option sounds a tad xenophobic, yeah, it absolutely is. Your table will have to decide whether or not in this case a no Ambrians ever, not even one, policy is justified.
The serpents of Gaoia represent 40,000, with a full 10,000 ready combatants. We're the furthest from conflict with Ambria, but willing to fight to prove ourselves and gain back some resources for everybody. We follow the serpent god Euron. In battle, we follow the way of the Wrath God with spears and shields, and our green witches are masters of entangling vines. We are ready for war, but we are a people divided. Let's use our division to our advantage with multiple strikes. Thistlehold, Kastor, Savona, Temple Wall. We need not hold these lands, for we would fail to do so. Raid and retreat.
The Gaoia proposal is one that may have already been on your mind. Several swift strikes all at once rather than a single make-or-break offensive. It could work, but it could be a half measure that splits the barbarian forces to a dangerous degree. I can see many tables being drawn to this one, and it potentially allows you to play out multiple storylines with multiple characters, something I'll go into in another video. But this is not the optimal choice. There is no optimal choice, and that's the point. Your players should have disagreements about what works best for them and what is right for their barbarian characters, but by the end of the session, they should be able to solidify their primary campaign. There can always be a backup. Maybe the main force is attacking Temple Wall, while a small team in the background is recruiting trolls and goblins to provide the cavalry charge against the Ambrian counteroffensive at the last minute. There are loads of possibilities, including potential 11th options you or your players come up with through the discussion. But you must choose.
And so, we have heard all the proposals. We have gathered and we have talked. Now, before winter ends, we must act. We must fight or fall. The fate of the descendants of Symbaroum rests on the wills of those in this room.
So, go do it. Go run a campaign. That's what I'm gonna do. I've already had this session 0 with my group from Ghost of Karahar, and I'm stoked for what we are setting up. We're gonna make characters, we're gonna make this campaign as big and as epic as we possibly can, and I'm gonna keep posting videos about it on YouTube. You can ask me questions about this concept in the comments below, but what matters is strike while the iron is hot. Get together your friends or make a looking for game post online to start your very own war for Symbaroum. You can play out this discussion at session 0 as I'm proposing here, or you can just take your favorite of the 10 options and launch the campaign from there. If you've listened this far, I'm betting you already have battle maps to draw and characters ready to voice. Begin your war for Symbaroum now. Have a nat one day. Bye bye.